Hello, and welcome to Self-Service for the Ages, a one-to-one media Take 30 webcast. I'm Myla D'Antonio, Editor-in-Chief of One-to-One Media, and your moderator for today's event. Today's speaker is Rick Williams, Manager of Customer Support at Yamaha, the musical instruments company. Welcome, Rick, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Before I review the agenda, let's go over the ON24 interface. If anyone has a question for Rick, please click the red Q&A icon. If you encounter any technical issues with the ON24 system, please click on the gold question mark for a list of FAQs. Also, please turn off your pop-up blockers because there will be a survey during the Q&A that we'd encourage you to participate in. Finally, all attendees will receive an email with a link to the archived version of this webcast. Moving on to today's agenda, where Rick is going to discuss advice and best practices for companies that recognize self-service as a must-have, strategies for elevating self-service to become a sustainable competitive advantage, tips for leveraging social for self-service, and advice for encouraging customers to use self-service over live customer support. This webcast will also be followed by a Q&A and a post-event survey. So let's get started. Mobile and internet usage today continues to rise, and customers have more control over their service experiences than ever before. That means that companies need to provide a consistent user experiences across channels, tie those experiences into the same customer data repositories, and use the knowledge they've got to personalize and streamline their interactions. Rick, at Yamaha, self-service has become a viable source of customer service. In fact, comprehensive FAQs and product specifications are allowing Yamaha customers to solve problems on their own. Can you take the audience back to the factors that led up to the company deciding to rely less on live conversations and more on FAQs on the website?
Sure. Roughly about 4 years ago, we have a bunch of departments here at Yamaha, and all those departments were really operating independently, which means we never really had a consistent Yamaha support vision. So about 4 years ago, we changed all of that, and we put all the support departments under a common leadership structure. So what that did, it allowed for common reporting, common measurements, common vision, if you will, for all the departments on how we approached the overall aspect of providing support.
Great. Can you also discuss the strategy behind Yamaha's self-service deployment?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we took a look at is that with all those departments doing their own thing, we looked at how support was being provided. And in general, support was being a reactive type support as opposed to being a proactive one. So from a reactive point of view, we don't know there's a problem until you called us or you emailed us. So we took a look at that, and we tried to really say, is that the right thing for us to do? So we decided no, of course it wasn't. So we wanted to really take our support to the next level, and one of the things that we did is consolidated all of our FAQs into one common source in one area on our website. Prior to that, it was multiple websites where those things existed. Now a customer can go to one area, a support area on our website, click on FAQs or click on downloads, or basically service anything they need from that one particular area. Prior to that, that didn't exist.
So Rick, that probably also entailed some changes internally. How did Yamaha, how did the structure organizationally change to adapt to the shift in service, and how were employees brought into these changes?
Well, and that kind of alludes to what I mentioned a little bit earlier, which was we had all the departments reporting to different areas, and they were doing their own thing. So we did consolidate the reporting structure under one person. That person is me, and the attitude or the overall method that we were providing support had to change, which was from more of a reactive point of view to more of a proactive point of view. So the team really had to be educated on the value of providing FAQs or videos or other support tools to better assist customers, for example, in a 24-hour environment that we're not always here. Prior to that, the team was primarily relying on phone calls and emails as their reach out to the customer.
Great. So you provide these comprehensive product specifications online, but if customers do decide to call, Yamaha uses these moments as opportunities to collect feedback and fix any issues. Can you talk about those efforts in terms of how employees are trained to collect and pass on that information to others in the organization, and do you regularly change processes or fix issues as a result of that information being shared?
Good question. So what that really boils down to is that we want information, and from a support perspective, that information is provided from the customer either in a positive light or interaction with the agent, or in a very frustrated light. Either way, we really encourage the feedback because we take that as a present from the customer and use it to improve the product, to improve the service, to improve the manual, to improve FAQs overall. And then we also survey the customers. So at the end of the call or the email, we will send a survey out and asking the customers basically, how did we do? And then it also gives them another opportunity to provide feedback on the product or the service that we're providing. And then we take that very seriously and look at that on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to improve the overall aspect of what we're doing. So from a mindset from the team, it's really trying to fix the problem and not necessarily just the symptom. So if a customer is calling, of course, we want to handle that in the best manner, but that may be just a symptom of a problem. We actually want to get to the root of the problem and fix the problem itself, which that will fix it for multiple customers down the road.
And when you say you look at this on a weekly and monthly basis, is that the management together sits down and decides which issues need to be fixed most based on this feedback? It's kind of both, because the team would rely on the management of each individual group to look at the feedback and take appropriate action, whether it's immediate, if that customer needs another email or needs another callback or needs another file. We handle that immediately. On a more longer-term basis, we take a look at overall, in general, what are people contacting us about, and can we address those in some fashion? Does the manual need to be updated? Does the FAQ need to exist? Maybe it didn't exist before. So all that feedback is taken, as I mentioned, on a daily basis, monthly basis, to become actionable and make sure that we address it appropriately. And are there any formal processes or systems in place that where you collect and funnel that information so that you can discuss it? From a formal perspective, yes. So what we do is that it really starts with how the call is documented or how the email is documented, and then what the actual answer is. Because a lot of cases we can take that data from the customer and the interaction with the agent and turn that dialogue directly into an FAQ. That's the best scenario. And the worst case scenario, we get an email that says it's broken, for example, and then we have to dig into that a little bit. But in general, the process is we take the data from the customer interactions that are documented and use those as a basis or foundation to create FAQs and or videos. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that, Rick. Moving on to another topic that's of great interest to our audience is social media. And so how is Yamaha leveraging the social channels like Twitter and Facebook to also serve customers in the channels of their choice? And how has that changed the game for Yamaha? And social is a very good topic and very important topic for Yamaha because we embrace those channels. And what we do is we have multiple Facebook pages, as I imagine a lot of the listeners do. Those are Facebook and Twitter pages. Mainly those are for marketing purposes. But we have only one support Facebook page, and we have only one Twitter Facebook page. So from a support perspective, we route all the questions through those two areas. Anybody on Facebook will go to our one support page, which makes it very convenient for us from a service perspective. Now, from a leveraging standpoint, we basically really don't care how the customer's question gets to us because we know it's a customer that's in need. So if it comes in Twitter, comes in Facebook, comes in email, or comes over the phone, it's still a customer that needs our help. So we treat each one basically the same. The volume of our contacts is primarily still phone,
but it's slowly shifting toward email and social. Social, we've been had a great push on that for probably about the last 2 years, and we see that as growing and impacting the other areas, mainly because social, if you post something on a Facebook page, for example, it's a one-to-many. So it's almost like a living, breathing FAQ, whereas an email, it's a one-to-one, and you can certainly help that customer, but you're not able to really help additional customers with your response. Social has really changed that game, if you will, and we can help multiple customers by just them looking at our posts.
Great. And Rick, the other day you and I were talking about how Yamaha has incorporated this single sign-on now too. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that and how you're collecting the data from their social channels?
Yes, absolutely. That's a little bit of an exciting area for us as well, because for a while we didn't have a sign-on to download a manual, for example. Then we added that. Then we didn't have a sign-on for sending us an email. Then we added that. Then we moving into the social world, we added social sign-on. So the intent is that making it easy for the customer to get to us. So the thought being that customers may or may not be on the Yamaha website on a daily basis, but there's a lot of customers out there that are on Facebook, for example, on a daily basis. So if you're on Facebook and actually already logged in, you can with one click sign into Yamaha and then send us an email. So the sign-in process is greatly simplified, and we're seeing it more and more be accepted by the customer base. Right now, it's about 60% people use the social sign-on, and about 40% use the traditional method, and that's shifting every day.
And you see more customers willing to sign on with their Facebook pages. This doesn't seem to be a deterrent for Yamaha.
No, when we introduced that, when we first introduced the log-on to interact with us, we thought we'd see a backlash there, and I think that's becoming more and more acceptable as more and more companies adopt to that. And then we went to the social sign-on, and a lot of customers are also accepting that. I mean, we see a lot of big companies out there that also have the social sign-on, and more are doing it every day. For example, Mattel, NPR, Samsung, Sears, Guitar Center, EMI Records. You know, all those companies are recognizing the value of social, and they all have social sign-ons just like we do. The one benefit, for example, if you're driving people from the social space to your website, you probably want to have a social sign-on there because the person's already in the social space, so they're used to that. And then from a benefit from our side, it makes it easy for us to interact with that customer.
That's great. Thanks, Rick. This also leads me to another question about integration with all these channels being used and leveraged. How are the service efforts at Yamaha, how are they integrated across all these channels?
Good question. So as I mentioned a few minutes earlier, that the support we provide, as I mentioned, we don't particularly care where the question comes from. We know we want to service that customer. So we use a consolidated CRM system here, Salesforce, and that works out really well for us because the Salesforce can take the Facebook post or the Twitter post or emails or phone calls and it's all in one consolidated area, and it makes it easy for the agent. So the agent can respond from one application to a Twitter post or a Facebook post or an email or log a phone call. So we make it basically very simple for the agent, because the thought being if we have a happy agent, then we're going to have happy customers. Great.
So I want to remind people we're at the halfway mark, and if you have a question that you can ask it in your at the bottom of the icon there is the Q&A icon if you have a question. So moving on, Rick, I'm sure that our audience members would love to hear if Yamaha could share any ROI that the company's realized from these self-service strategies, and also if you could talk a bit about how you plan to evolve your service efforts that are in place over the next year.
Yeah, ROI on a service standpoint is a little bit difficult because in general, service is a cost, not a money maker. But in general, our mind shift is trying to really be where those customers are and maximize our support efforts. Because in general, support departments aren't really staffed with thousands of people. They're traditionally one of the more lean areas in the company. So we try and maximize the people that we have and with the efforts that we're trying to put out and solve as much issues as possible. So when we talk about ROI, we are seeing a great benefit from the FAQs and a great benefit from the videos and from offering social, because it allows that customer to really reach out to us in the method that they like and allows them to communicate at their leisure in the areas where they frequent most. As I mentioned, typically a lot of people aren't on our website daily, but we do see that the Facebook area and the Twitter area growing, and it seems to be impacting the other areas, which is primarily phone call. We are primarily 70% phone call and about 30% non-phone call, but that non-phone call is growing, and the FAQ usage is growing. So one of the things that's a challenge is trying to make people aware of the other tools that are there, such as the FAQs or such as being able to post on Facebook or Twitter. Because I think a lot of people would utilize those other services if they knew they existed. So one little challenge is trying to make people who would normally use a phone call to communicate aware of the other services, and they would probably use them if they knew they existed.
And how are you making them aware that the self-service exists?
We try and get the word out in front of them in multiple ways. One of them is on the survey, we mentioned that. If someone has an email into us, we also mention the other services. We promote Twitter and Facebook and FAQs that way. But it's kind of a delicate balance. We want to make sure that people know these things exist, but we don't want to try and force them to use those tools either. So the customers that don't know about them hopefully are becoming aware of them from the email auto replies or from our website or from the survey that we provide. And in some cases, the agents also do a gentle little push about them as well. So if someone calls about a particular situation and that situation has been addressed in an FAQ, they typically will respond to the customer, explain the situation, but also mention, hey, did you know that this situation is covered in our FAQs? You may want to look there the next time you need some assistance for us or from us.
It sounds like a great strategy. So thank you, Rick. It's time to kick off our Q&A session now. First, a few reminders. If you'd like a PDF copy of the deck, click the download presentation button at the bottom center of your screen. If you miss any part of this presentation or want to see it again, all attendees will receive an email with a link to the archived version. I'd like to remind everyone about the survey posted during the Q&A period coming up next. Please take a moment to participate. You'll need to turn off your pop-up blockers to enable the survey. So now let's begin the Q&A. Just another reminder, if you want to ask Rick a question, click the Submit Question button in the lower left-hand section of your presentation window. If we don't get your question, we'll email you a response after this webinar. So let's see. Dave Angelo has a question. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, do you use a knowledge management tool to support self-service? And if so, is this integrated with agent-assisted help?
A knowledge management tool. In some cases, we don't have a knowledge base directly tied to Salesforce. We use a third party for that, and that's where we have post all of our FAQs and so forth as well. One of the reasons that's quite nice, though, is that the knowledge base, we have control over it. So, which means that if my agents make an FAQ, we can create it, edit it, and post it, and it becomes live within 24 hours. That's not always been the case. We haven't had a lot of control over that till we got that new system or software to be able to do that. So it makes it very convenient for us because of the knowledge base is easily accessible by us. So if we have to change an FAQ, we can do that very easily. Or if we have to add one, we can do it very easily. Or delete one, we can do that very easily. And we don't have to schedule a project, if you will, and and have that be looked at, reviewed, and then finally taken action. We have total control over that, which is very, very nice from a support perspective, because sometimes things happen very, very quickly, and we have to have the ability to react appropriately and also proactively. So that in itself really helps out overall because of the fact that we control our own destiny, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then the other part of Dave's question was, is it integrated with agent-assisted help?
It's not directly integrated, but it is a tool that is used, because Salesforce has their knowledge base built into it, but we don't use that one. There's a couple reasons for that, but in general, we find that the third-party one that we do use is pretty flexible, and it allows us to have the control that we want.
Great. Here's another question, Rick. Can you have too much self-service?
From a support perspective, me personally, I think self-service is a very good thing. But on the other side of the fence, from a customer perspective, we have to look at it from both ways, because we fell into the trap before of what's good for Yamaha may not always be good for the customer. So our perspective had to change a little bit to try and make sure it's looking at it from both sides, what's good for Yamaha support and what's good for the customer. So too much self-service can be perceived as a bad thing. It's not necessarily a replacement for good customer service, but it can be perceived if you push that, for example. If you constantly push FAQs or constantly push self-service, the customer may recognize that, and they might feel that you're making them do all of your work, if you will. And if you're trying to hide your number, for example, your phone number, or if you're trying to hide your email address, customers become wise to that, and certainly they'll let you know that that's not a good thing. So it is a delicate balance, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. You want to try and inform the people that may not be aware of your self-service tools, but also try not to oversaturate them as well, because you may turn off some people who already are aware of those and think you're trying to hide behind them. Similar thing would be someone has a long menu on a phone tree. That tends to frustrate customers. So if you tend to put self-service as your only contact and bury your phone number or bury your email address, or if you don't have a social aspect and those are kind of hidden, I think customers are very, very smart nowadays, and they tend to react appropriately, and we'll let you know that that's not something they're looking for.
Right, so it's really, like you said, it's a very delicate balance, and maybe it's not right for every industry. Here's another question: Is self-service a good idea, and does it depend on the industry that you're in?
I think that that's a good question, because I think it does kind of depend on the service industry or the industry that you're in, because some are more used to self-service. I mean, we're all seeing self-service now at grocery stores or now at Home Depot. You go check yourself out. So that was a big shift for them. So it depends on the industry and what product you're supporting. Obviously, if you're supporting heart monitors, maybe self-service might not be the best method for that, and phone is probably the best way to go. But it really depends on your customer base, and maybe in some cases the age of the customer base, because the customers nowadays in general are very familiar with smartphones or very familiar with the internet. My son, for example, is begging me for a smartphone. So his might be just for Facebook reasons. But in general, the self-service, people are, I think, in some cases might expect that it's available. And if you don't have it available, that could be an issue as well. But if you do have it available, it goes back to that balance. Making sure that you promote it, but in the right way, so you don't turn off the customer. So there is a delicate balance. You're trying to influence customer behavior, but not try and force customer behavior.
Great. And either way, it's something, self-service is something companies definitely need to pay attention to going forward. So thanks, Rick, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so any unanswered questions will be addressed via email. This concludes Self-Service for the Ages, a Take 30 with One-to-One Media webcast. On behalf of the entire team, thanks for attending and have a great day.